After graciously urging consumers, producers, and writers to reevaluate the slasher subgenre of horror in 1996, Scream 2 had the difficult job of proving the franchise wasn't a one-time success. Bigger, bloodier, and far more self-aware,
Take the phone up and star 69 his ass.
the sequel explores what happens after surviving trauma when the world turns you into live entertainment. With Sidney Prescott now in college and the Woodsboro murders inspiring the in-universe Stab franchise, Ghostface returns at a time when media obsession, fame, and copycat violence are beginning to consume the survivors all over again. The film doesn't just repeat its original formula, it expands its emotional fallout, deepens Sidney's character, and sharpens the franchise's commentary on sequels, audiences, and the culture surrounding violence. Hey guys, my name is Nathania Ray, also known as Scream Chats here on YouTube. Welcome to my humble little corner of the internet, and if you're not new, then welcome back. Over here, we love chatting about media that make us scream, whether from fear or frustration, and rewriting endings to give them more satisfying conclusions. So if that's the kind of content that you enjoy, consider liking this video and subscribing. If you have not already seen my Scream 1996 retrospective, then I definitely recommend you go ahead and check that one out. It was uploaded last week. It's available on my channel. You can see it in the iCards as well. But if you have seen it and you're all caught up, then let's talk about Scream 2. We're going to try to minimize a lot of the visuals because YouTube was stressing me out with the first version of this video with all the copyright stuff. So we're going to be talking, we're going to be chatting it up, and hopefully that's fine. Scream 2's opening is almost as iconic as the first one. Unfortunately, I don't think it gets talked about enough, especially considering how it ranks amongst the openings that follow. It's pretty high up there, in my opinion at least. So we're introduced off the bat to Maureen and Phil. They're a college-aged couple who are on a date to see the premiere of the new Stab movie, which is written by Gale and based on the events of the first movie. It's so interesting because Scream is supposed to be a love letter to the horror genre. It's supposed to reference other horror movies of the time. However, with the introduction of Stab, the movies, they kind of become a little full of themselves, and instead of referencing other horror movies as much as they should, they start referencing Stab a whole lot. And that starts here, but it doesn't really get too in your face until the next movie. Like, it's so full of itself right now that the entire opening scene of Scream 2 is the characters watching a dramatic reenactment of the opening scene in part 1. And it doesn't get any better as the franchise goes on. Just wait till we get to part 4. Also, this is the most dramatic movie premiere I have ever seen. You've got people in the audience wearing full-fledged Ghostface costumes, running around with these little plastic knives. It's straight chaos. Imagine if that Ryan Murphy monster series was premiering in movie theaters and people were showing up to the Jeffrey Dahmer premiere with lobotomy tools, running around like, hello? What is going on here? And of course, this is not really taking itself super seriously. It is satire at the end of the day, but I just find it so hilarious how in the opening scene, they're just running amok in that theater. I also love how there's this bit of commentary that the couple offers on the representation of Black characters in film and how it adds to the irony of them being killed off first. It's calling out the trope of Black characters always dying first in horror movies, but I'll be honest, I don't really know how true that stereotype is. I feel like Black characters often make it to at least the second or third character to die, but let me know if you guys can think of 3 horror movies where the Black character died first. Comment them down below. I would love to be enlightened on that because I don't know. I don't really feel like that's super true. Anyway, mid-movie or mid-opening scene, Phil excuses himself to head over to the bathroom, and for some reason, he's hearing someone whispering in the stall next to him, and he decides to put his face up against that nasty ass stall. Ew. And I'm not saying he deserved what he got, but let's just say there are consequences to every action. So now the killer done got Phil's jacket, put on his own Ghostface mask, and he showed up to go sit right down next to Maureen. He's pretending to be Phil, who's unalived in the bathroom stall. If you guys can hear my dog barking in the background, terribly sorry, but the show must go on. We have to finish recording this video before my baby wakes up because the boy demands all his mom's attention, and I will not be able to sit in front of this computer and finish this video today and get it up on time if we do not continue. So let's just ignore the dog if y'all can hear him, okay? Also, do y'all like my shirt? It says maybe I am the drama, and I am. But anyway, we are back to the movie theater. The killer is sitting in the seat next to Maureen, pretending to be her man, and he starts stabbing a girl in the theater in the seats. Everybody around is so chaotic and doing whatever. They think, oh, this is just a publicity stunt. This is part of the show. This is part of the movie. And Maureen gets her way all the way up on the stage in front of the screen and lets out this long, dramatic, visceral scream. I'm talking veins popping out of Jada Pinkett Smith's forehead and all the whole shebang. Okay, and it leaves such an impression. Similarly to the way I talked about this in the first movie, Casey Becker, the scream from her mama when they found her body hanging on that tray. Oh my gosh, such cinema. Unfortunately, this is the last truly great opening scene we get, like the ending, at least, like the way it makes you sit with the characters that are left to kind of see or bear witness to what Ghostface has done. This is the last time we really get something truly masterful like this. Every other opening scene following, we just get this gimmicky Ghostface slash into the title card, but here is where you really feel that emotion. You're stuck with the faces of the audience looking up at her and realizing, oh shit, this is real. This is not part of the show. Somebody's actually getting got right now. Damn. It's so traumatizing and I love it. So now that we finished talking about the opening scene, let's talk about the suspects and how they explore the different horror tropes related to sequels. Immediately after the opening, we are reintroduced to Sydney and we meet her new roommate, Hallie, or Haley. Hallie. We discover that Cotton Weary has been released from prison following the events of the first Scream movie, which good on him because he did not unalive Maureen Prescott. He simply had an affair with a married woman and forgot his jacket. Fun fact, Haley has a sweater. Hallie, I'm gonna keep mixing up her name. Hallie and Haley. It's Hallie, I think, but I'm probably going to continue calling her Haley once in a while. Just know I'm talking about the roommate, okay? She has a sweater in her closet that kind of looks like the Freddy sweater, and I find that little Easter egg so fun considering the fact that Wes Craven directed both Scream and the original Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's just a little fun fact. But the sweaters don't match completely. The colors are a little off, but they're similar enough where it feels like a little homage, okay? So Sydney learns about the Maureen and Phil killings at the premiere, immediately hauls ass going to find Randy, who was in his film class, and they're debating violence in cinema causes violence in real life. And that is such a good debate. Like, this was at the time where OJ Simpson's trial was popping off, and there was so much going on in the media. People were sending love letters to serial killers in prison. Like, and it's a great scene because every character has their own unique perspective. We have Casey, who's played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. Shout out to her. She was also in I Know What You Did Last Summer. This same year, And that movie was also written by Kevin Williamson, the one who wrote Scream 1 and 2, so, and 7, unfortunately. No, he directed 7, that's why. When he's writing, he does good. Oh, Kevin Williamson also wrote the first couple seasons of The Vampire Diaries. He's great in the writer's room. It's when you put him in that director's chair things start going awry. But anyway, Cece is saying that you cannot blame real life violence on entertainment. There's another character who chimes in and it's like, yeah, like I had class with Maureen. This is real life. Y'all need to stop talking. This is not about cinema. That's ridiculous. This is real. These are real people that are being unalived, and this violence is senseless. And some of the characters completely disagree, and they say that the movie is directly responsible. The killer was wearing a Ghostface costume, using Ghostface's weapon at Ghostface's premiere. Like, how much more evidence do you need? And that's pretty much what the debate in the classroom is about. And this is one of my favorite scenes in all of these movies. We don't really get another scene so good like this, and there was such a missed opportunity in part 6. We'll get to it when we get to the rewrites, but man, I wish we had some conversations like that in those movies as well, and the future renditions of these movies. But this movie did this conversation on the tropes so well, because we also get into sequels. Why would someone want to make a real life stab sequel, which is what they determine that the killer is doing? There's the Mickey character who speaks up and he says that obviously their killer is inspired by the events of Woodsboro, and Randy shuts him down immediately. He says sequels are inferior anyway. Why would anyone want to make a sequel, especially a sequel to Stab? And I love how this moment in the movie trickles to later scenes where Mickey and Randy are trying to go kind of back and forth on what sequel do you know that outdid the original. Mickey is trying to prove it, and Randy is like, no, you can't outdo the original with no damn bloody sequel. That's stupid and it doesn't happen. So throughout the movie, every scene that you see them together in, Mickey will be like, hey, what about this? And Randy's like, no. So stuff like that I really enjoy. Scream 2 is great. First of all, I just want to give this movie its cookies. I love so many individual scenes, and I didn't realize that until I really sat down to do this video. Every Scream movie does a suspect roundup scene where there are 2 or more characters talking about all of the suspects in the movie and what their motive could be. And Scream 2 has the best version of this scene out of all of the franchise. It's just Dewey and Randy having a private conversation that no one else can hear, and they are discussing all of the characters that are involved. They talk about Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student. They talk about Hallie, the roommate. Maybe Mrs. Voorhees was great in Friday the 13th, which, quoting Randy. The boyfriend, Randy is like, no, it's tired. The boyfriend was the last time. I doubt it's that. So they really run through all the suspects together and talk about who they think could be guilty. It's a private conversation between 2 people who trust each other, trying to narrow down who the suspects could be and what their motive would be. When we get to the future movies, we'll discuss why Scream 2 did this scene the best. So stay tuned. I will have Scream 3 retrospective coming out next week. Subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss it. So to summarize the friend group, we have Derek, which is Sydney's new boyfriend. We've got Hallie, which is her roommate. We've got Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student, as Randy described him. He's walking around the whole movie with his camcorder because it's the 90s. He's trying to do a documentary, I think he says, on the college life or whatever. Then there's Randy, of course. He's a returner from part 1. We love him, XOXO. And of course, we've got Sydney, our protagonist. And that's the main friend group. We've got Haley, who is trying to pledge a sorority, and she's trying to convince Sydney to pledge it as well. So we've got these 2 sorority sisters who are always kind of lurking behind the scenes, and we've got her boyfriend Derek, who is a part of the fraternity that is associated with this sorority. There's like a little subplot. There's a party that they all go to midway through the movie, so that's why I wanted to mention the Greek stuff. Oh, there's also this pesky reporter that keeps on harassing Gale or just annoying Gale on campus. Her name is Debbie Salt, and she asks Gale for a quote in the beginning, like, "Oh my gosh, Gale, I'm such a big fan. Can I have a quote from you?" That kind of thing. And Gale just is like, "Girl, you're desperate as hell. Get out of my face." Now, in the Debbie Saul character, she doesn't even feel significant enough to really be included as a suspect, but she's low key in every scene. Every scene that Gale is in, Debbie is kind of in the background, lurking. Like, but she's a reporter just like Gale, so it makes sense. And they have enough banter to leave such an impression that it's hard not to include her. So now that we've talked about the suspects and how they relate to the horror tropes, let's talk about the plot of the movie now. After Maureen and Phil are killed, we catch up with Sydney to find her getting prank calls from assholes who are Stab fans or Billy fans or just have too much time on their hands. Either way, it's safe to say that after the events of the previous movie, which happened only 1 year before this one, Sydney's mental health is still in shambles, okay? There's a suspect roundup at the college quad. We've got Sydney and Derek, Mickey with his camera, we've got Haley and Randy being iconic comic relief, and Gale at the press conference. Dewey's useless ass, of course, saw the news and decided to show up and be a liability all over again, on top of everything Sydney got going on. But she was happy to see him, I guess, so whatever. After Tatum's passing in the first movie, Sydney and Dewey developed this brother sister kind of bond, and moving forward, that's their relationship in every rendition of the franchise. So this kind of starts off here. They have a little chat where Dewey pretty much explains to Sydney that whoever is responsible for this is probably someone who's already in her life. And then, of course, immediately after this, Gale blindsides Sydney with an interview with Cotton Weary. Now, Sydney, remember from the first movie, falsely accused Cotton Weary of assaulting and unaliving her mother and put him in jail for a year. So now he's out after everything happened with Billy and Stu, and he wants his little moment of fame. He wants it on record, Sydney saying he's an innocent man, pretty much. And Gail promised to get him that, but she didn't say anything to Sydney. So when he pops up in front of her face on campus, Sydney is feeling attacked. She's like, what the hell is going on here? Gail, I don't even like you in the first place for you to be pulling this on me. And she punches Gail in the face once again after. It's kind of a tradition almost for Gail to get punched in the face in these movies because she does do some conniving stuff, I will say. While I am a Gail stan and I do support a woman's rights and wrongs, Gail is wrong a lot of the time when she does stuff like this, but she has she has a heart, you know. And Gail, she's ruthless as hell. But Sydney did owe him that interview. I will say that. She had that man in jail for over a year and he's just trying to rebuild his life. A simple "I made a mistake and I'm sorry" on camera could have completely changed the trajectory of his entire life. So I think she could have gave that to him. That same night, Sydney ends up going to a sorority party with all the usual suspects. Derek is there, her boyfriend. Hallie, her roommate, is there trying to get into sorority and trying to get Sydney into the sorority. We see Randy and Mickey having that little sequel, which one is better exchange. And Cece Cooper, Sarah Michelle Gellar from the film class earlier in the movie, she's across the street at her sorority house getting a Casey Becker treatment. But after all that goes down, the police are outside the sorority house and everyone's rushing over there to see what's going on. Sydney, for whatever reason, is the last one in the. Oh, she went back in, I think, to get her jacket. But after she goes back inside to get her jacket, the phone rings. Now, this is not your house, Sydney girl. This is not your sorority, Sydney girl. But does she answer that phone anyway? Yes. Yes, she does. And guess who? So Sydney answers the phone, of course. Ghostface is on the other line. He jumps out of a closet as he does best and attacks her. Derek, the boyfriend, comes in trying to protect Sydney. He gets injured. It was given Billy Loomis corn syrup. So everybody's looking at the boyfriend all suspicious, like, that's a real light little cut compared to what Cece got across the street. When Maureen got in the movie theater and Phil in the bathroom stall, you just got a little slice on your arm, brother. Real suspicious. Everyone's calling him out, and Derek is like, well, yeah, I'm a hero. I saved the day. Where was the police? So anyway, the shenanigans continue. Randy does get taken out in this movie. R.I.P. I really miss you, homie. I really, really do. And every single movie after this one has a Randy copy, look-alike, act-alike kind of character, and none of them, except one that is introduced in part 4, give that same just razzle dazzle that Randy provided. But nonetheless, Sidney gets attacked again in the library. Cotton Weary pops up, menacing as ever. He's like, Sidney, I'm gonna get my interview. I'm gonna get my interview, come hell or high water. And I am the hell and the high water. If you know where that quote is from, comment down below, and I love you. So the shenanigans continue, and Sidney is attacked again, which results in the police deciding to take her off campus for her own safety. But that backfires dramatically. Derek also ends up getting kidnapped by his fraternity brothers because he gave his letters to Sidney earlier that day in this grand romantic gesture. The detectives and Haley get taken out in one of the most suspenseful scenes of the entire franchise. I'm talking great cinema, y'all. If you have never seen any of the Scream movies and you just want to know what is like top quality Wes Craven work, I'm telling you, go on YouTube. There has to be a video of just this one scene. Look up Scream 2 Sidney and Haley car scene. I'm telling you, that is some cinema. But now with her roommate and the cops that are supposed to be protecting her all gone, Sidney runs back to campus desperately seeking safety. Somehow she ends up in the theater because she's the lead of the play. I guess for some reason she felt safe there, so that's where she goes to hide. But this is where the third act bloodbath actually goes down. So guess it wasn't that safe, Sidney. So before we get into the final act bloodbath, let's rewind a little bit and talk about the overall mystery and suspense of the movie. At about the 30-minute mark, we meet up with Cece in the Omega Beta Zeta house. She is the sober sister for the night, so she's just home watching TV, waiting for someone to call who needs a ride. And I'm just assuming that there have to be other parties on campus that night because the party that everyone in the movie is at is across the street from this one. Like, they can literally see the police lights from the party after Cece is taken out, but whatever. She answered a call from the killer and panicked as soon as she realized that Ted, her drunk boyfriend, wasn't the person trolling her on the other end. The killer continued calling and harassing Cece similar to the way they did with Casey in the first movie, but this time it was different than Billy and Stu's horror trivia games. It felt a lot more about the chase and the kill than anything else. Now, Cece called campus security, but this is the 90s. So when she opens the front door trying to get out of the house, forgetting she needs to be inside the house for the phone to work, and she accidentally let the killer sneak right in. When I tell you, every single time I watch this movie, I'm hooting and hollering at the TV, watching this shit go down. Now, Cece had me stressed in that house, walking around all slow and scared, looking behind doors. And one thing about a Wes Craven movie, he's gonna let you get your guard down. He's gonna have you trembling in your boots, just waiting. And you finally let your guard down. And as soon as that happens, BAM! It's the knife running across your screen. Debbie Salt, the reporter who'd been annoying Gale, was there before she even was, rushing away to meet her deadline after filling Gale in on all the details. And after the CC killing, Gale and Dewey were invited to the precinct to consult. Gale deduces that the first 3 victims were chosen because their names match the Woodsboro spree. A officially making it a copycat. Now, Gale, the main person investigating this case and carrying the movie on her back as she does, decides that she should go through her video footage because the killer is probably on that footage somewhere, lurking in the background and enjoying the chaos that they've caused. But before they're able to follow through and look through all that footage, Randy answers a call meant for Gale and ends up biting the bullet or catching the knife, if you will. I do love, though, how this scene or this death ends up triggering Gale's cameraman to get out. He's like, absolutely not. Y'all out here just unaliving folks. I don't want to do this. And of course, it's the black character who's like, no, call me a taxi. I got to get the hell up out of Dodge. And that was actually, in addition, made at the request of the actor. He said he walked up to Wes Craven and was like, listen, in real life, if this was me, I would have dipped. I'm just a cameraman. I'm not trying to die for this job. I would have left. And Wes Craven is like, okay, shoot, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I wouldn't even say that Randy's unaliving was suspenseful because you really did not even expect it to happen. They were in the middle of the quad. You've never been on a college campus before. It looks like a big giant park, and there are all the college buildings surrounding it. It's like the middle of the campus where all the students kind of collectively hang out, and you just would never expect someone to be stabbed up like that mid-daylight in the quad. But yeah, Randy is. He's pulled into Gale's van and stabbed up. Brutally, may I add. So traumatizing. But while Sydney and her roommate are being whisked away by the police, Gale and Dewey head over to the theater so that they can go through all of the footage that they've collected from the cameraman who dipped out. And they're macking and getting distracted. Somehow Ghostface ends up in there, chasing them around. They get separated. Dewey gets stabbed up because duh. And while they're being chased around the building, Sydney's boyfriend is getting tied up on the theater by his fraternity brothers. And they're partying. Once their party is done, they do leave him tied up there. And whenever he gets down is whenever he gets down, I guess. Finally, let's talk about the final act killer reveal. So we're back on campus. Sydney has fled to the theater where she finds Derek tied up, and we finally get our reveal, which is Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student, as predicted by Randy. Shout out to Randy, because he guessed it in both his movies who the killer was. He flat out called Stu out in the beginning. Let me not get distracted. I just love Randy so much. But anyway, I don't know if I would consider Mickey's reveal to be shocking when you consider the process of elimination and also realize that he disappeared halfway through the second half of the movie. But they did a hell of a job setting Cotton up as a red herring. Oh my goodness. He was so menacing. He showed up in the beginning to Sydney so like, yeah, I'm a good guy, blah, blah, blah. And then every scene you see him in after that, he's more menacing. Like he shows up in the library when Sydney is studying and he's like, you gonna give me that interview, girl. I deserve that interview, girl. And then he shows up again when Gale is running around after Dewey done got stabbed up and Cotton's hands is all bloody and she's looking at him like, it's you, it's you, it's you. And he's like, no, I just found Dewey. Ah. Like they set him up so well as a red herring. Like when he shows up on campus with Gale trying to get that interview, he's cool, he's calm. But when Sydney rejects the whole thing and he goes rogue, trying to convince Sydney on his own, he's so intimidating. And it really makes you think, what is this guy willing to do to get what he wants? And one thing about a final reveal in a Scream movie, the killers are going to mess with the protagonist. Whether it's Sydney or one of her stand-ins in a later movies, we get Mickey calling Derek out, accusing him of bailing on their plan when he's tied up helplessly, and Sydney is looking at him like, did I really just date my second homicidal maniac? Is that what's happening here? And just when she's like, oh shit, like I believe this, and she's refusing to tie him up now, Mickey shoots him in the heart. Damn. This still gets me every time I watch it. Like, poor Sidney, poor Derek. He didn't do nothing but love that girl. Okay, he gave her his letters. That's how he ended up tied up and helpless in the first place. But Mickey had to have had a partner. There. Yeah, my boy just woke up. I gotta hurry up and finish filming now. Mickey had to have had a partner. And if it wasn't Derek, then who could it be? Gale? As the movie tried to make us think for a split second, but no, of course it's not freaking Gale. It was, however, that random reporter lady who kept buzzing around like a mosquito in August. So let's talk about each of the killer's motives. Now, we start off with Mickey, who is one of my first, probably top 3 favorite ghost faces. He was kind of like a Billy Stu combo, and I find that to be pretty fun. I also think that Mickey was more demented than Billy and Stu. To some extent, Billy took responsibility for his behaviors, acknowledging that movies only made him more creative, but he would have been offing folks regardless. He had a plan to evade police suspicion and partake in future sprees. Mickey, on the other hand, was the opposite. He wanted to get caught and go on trial. He thought he could blame the movies and get acquitted. When you consider real life people like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, and even Eileen Wuornos, these people are all still infamous for the crimes they committed decades ago. That was what Mickey aspired to be. It made sense when you see how obsessed he was with sequels and with proving to Randy that they could outdo their predecessors. In addition to that, the way he whispered in Sydney's ear, trying to get her to doubt Derek's intentions after the little slice, like, yeah, that was another clue. In contrast, we have Mrs. Loomis, who was a hidden in plain sight kind of character. The only person who she even had any dialogue exchanges with in the entire movie was Gale, who couldn't stand her from the very first interaction, by the way. I would say that the first time watching this movie, Debbie Salt's reveal is pretty shocking, but more so just because you've probably forgot that her character even existed, while everyone else is like, falling off like flies, and you still have Cotton Wary running around with Dewey's blood all over him. Guys, please excuse my appearance. I am editing right now, but I just realized I completely skipped over Mrs. Loomis and her motive, or Debbie Salt. Debbie Salt is not her real name. It's Mrs. Loomis. She is Billy's mother. And she is the one who found Mickey online and recruited him. She basically convinced him to go to the campus with Sidney and off a bunch of people to torment her, and they would eventually off Sidney together. She also targeted Gale because Gale was also part of the Billy takedown. Give me a break when it comes to Mrs. Loomis, okay? She's a freaking mess. She was the one who abandoned her son in the first place, and then she's all mad that Sidney was the one who took him out. Mind you, he took out her mama. He took out her best friend. He took out Casey Becker, who sat next to her in English class. Like, hello? Your son was a menace to society, and he needed to be stopped. Before we get to my final thoughts on Scream 2, I just want to rapid fire go through the characters and discuss how I felt about them in this movie, their evolution from the last one, etc., etc. Dewey. This man had no reasonable excuse to leave Woodsboro. Just like in the first movie, he didn't really do anything to move the plot forward on his own. He followed Gale and Randy's lead and got stabbed up as soon as he was close enough to the killer to do so. Again, his good intentions are wrapped up in pure flop. Again. But we've got several more movies to get through, so keep on watching if you'd like to know if Dewey ever becomes useful. Now, Gale came into this knowing that she would be treated like public enemy number 1, and she didn't care. She walked on that campus with her head held high and a mystery to solve. And as much as I can't stand Dewey, I do have to give him his stars because I do love the scene where he gets to call her out for the way she portrayed him in her book. And he's calling her out and she's just kind of kicking her feet giggling because yes, Dewey, you do 1000% ooze inexperience, just like she said in her book. It's true. So what are you on about? But I just love that confrontation. That scene was pretty funny to me. And as much as I do love that scene, I also feel kind of bittersweet about it because I hate Dewey and Gale together, and I will die on this hill. And anyone who wants to fight about it in the comments, I would love to. Let's go. Now, Dewey is constantly accusing Gale of being this she-devil who roots for murder and mayhem, like she wasn't the baddie who saved his ass a year ago. He accuses her of being self-righteous and not being there for the right reasons, but honey, she's there to solve a crime and make a dime. Again, what the hell is he so upset about? Other than the fact that she wasn't bowing down to his incompetent ass, feeding him chocolate-covered strawberries in the sunset. If you remove Gale from these movies, the entire murder mystery element disappears. I swear, Dewey did nothing but just follow the leader. Oh, and criticize the leader too. I think Cotton is one of the characters that's like a focal point for the commentary that the movie is trying to make. The whole sequel discussion aside, Scream 2 calls out the phenomenon of serial killer celebrities that plagued the 90s. And yes, he was exonerated, but he was not missing the opportunity to capitalize on the accusation that he faced. And he's such an interesting character to explore considering he wasn't really even a character in the first movie, hence, aside from that little cameo where he's being carted away in handcuffs, but he was also another victim of Billy and Stu. He wasn't there in Woodsboro, he was in prison, but in part 2, he wanted to clear his name and elevate it, and he didn't care who or what he had to exploit to reach his goal. Very similar to Gale. Gale wanted to be a best-selling author. Mickey wanted to be infamous for his murder trial. Even Haley wanted the popularity and privilege that came with pledging a sorority. Cotton, who needed his 15 minutes of fame, was willing to do anything, including covering up Mrs. Loomis's crimes, her murder spree, just to get it. Ultimately, Sidney does agree to give him a sit down with Diane Sawyer. Mind you, this is when Mrs. Loomis has a knife to her throat, Cotton has a gun in his hand, and he has to choose who he's gonna take out. So he's like, Sidney, I bet that Diane Sawyer interview is looking great right now, huh? Like, oh my gosh. And he sits there and he waits for her to answer. He's not giving her, he was not taking his foot off her neck. He was like, girl, you gonna do the interview or not? Because I'll let this lady kill you if you want. Now, if you thought Sydney's mental health was in shambles at the end of part 1, just wait till we see her at the beginning of the next movie. Mickey and Billy, they both messed her up so badly that you just want to hug the poor girl when you see her walking off at the end. She tried so hard to move on from the events of the previous year. She enrolled in college, she made new friends, even a boyfriend, just for them all to get slaughtered in a scheme of revenge against her. Mind you, the girl didn't do a single thing to anybody. Everyone is after her for just existing. Scream 1996 is my number 1 in the franchise, and part 2 is right behind it. Like, literally, very, very close. Very, very close. The next one is a little further out, but these two, very, very close. It has an outstanding opening. Very dramatic, very rewatchable. Cotton Weary is also my favorite red herring in the franchise. There's just something so menacing about his interactions with Sidney, especially the one in the library. The reveals in this movie were decent. I feel like when you compare it to some of the other reveals that we get later on, it boosts this up quite a bit. But the theatrics of the third act on that stage is just so good. Overall, Scream 2 is such a solid addition to the franchise, and I wouldn't change a thing about it, which is why it will not be included in my rewrites series. I will be starting that series with part 3. That's where I feel like a lot of the writing kind of falls off with the exit of Kevin Williamson. So stay tuned for that. We'll be doing next week's Scream 3 retrospective, and the following week will be the first Scream Ray. So subscribe if you're interested in seeing that. Also, RIP to Randy. I'll never forgive them for killing you all. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. If you would like to support the channel, super thanks are enabled, but the biggest help was always sharing and subscribing, which you should do anyway if you like alternate endings, horror commentary, and character analysis type of videos. If you enjoyed this video, you would love the one up on the screen. Alright, thanks guys. Bye!